Hey there, welcome to the CMMC Compliance Guide podcast. I'm Austin.
And I'm Brooke.
From Justice IT Consulting, where we help businesses like yours navigate CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. We're hired guns, getting companies fast-tracked to compliance, but today we're here to give you all the secrets for free. So if you want to tackle it yourself, you're equipped to do so. Let's dive into today's episode and keep your business on track. Well, Brooke, we had another CyberAB Townhall, isn't that right?
We did an October Townhall.
Awesome. Very cool. So we're here just breaking down the CyberAB Townhall happenings and just kind of giving you our take on it, our hot take. And so that way, if you missed the meeting, the town hall, then you've got your updates.
Absolutely. Just trying to narrow it down to a few updates that our clients really care about.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. You shared with me a couple of the updates. So I'm just going to kind of tee up some questions to you that our listeners might have and let you answer them.
Sounds like a winner.
Awesome. Well, you said that the 32 CFR final rule has been published. Is that right?
It has been published, absolutely.
What happened there? What's changed? What do we need to know?
Well, there's a lot that's changed, and so we'll have another podcast to go over the changes of the 32 CFR final rule.
Okay.
But the rule is final, and it goes in effect on December 16th. If you follow the number of days, it was going to be December 14th, but that falls on a weekend, so it's December 16th is the next Monday. So, but it goes. Assessments will be available on December 16th. So that also depends on the CAP process when it comes out. I think it'll be out before then. The CAP is the CMMC assessment process. There's a whole ginormous document that tells exactly how the assessors have to go through the assessment process. So, very good acronym there, the CAP. So the CAP 2.0 is supposed to be out, which will guide all that. I don't see why it wouldn't be out before December 16th. But yes. So CMMC is official. It will go into effect on December 16th, and assessments will be available, but not required yet.
Okay. Awesome. So what do you think the implications are for our listeners, for businesses looking to get certified or that have DoD contracts? What are the implications for them?
Well, really the implications are that the assessments are available. I can tell you that there's a bit of a shortage of C3 PAOs, the organizations who do the assessments, and assessors. So we all kind of expect, I say we all, people I listen to, I guess, and anyway, kind of expect there to be a bit of a rush and people trying to get certified, especially as it moves on closer to the time that those are required and that when that 48 CFR rule drops. So, and the point there is that if you're ready, don't bother if you're not ready, of course, but if you're ready to go through an assessment or a readiness assessment, which would be something you do prior to the actual certification assessment. We've kind of discussed that on previous podcasts, why you would do that. But if you're ready for that, then I would go ahead and get on somebody's on a C3PAO's calendar, which probably would require down payment, I would guess. But anyway, get on their calendar and get a schedule set, and that way you're in line, because who knows what's going to happen mid-2025. So
I've got something here, a note to talk about M&A activity. What's that about?
Yeah, so one of the and it's really I think it's more of a clarification, not really a change, but it did come out in the 32 CFR final rule. They talked about it in the CyberAB Town Hall. If there's any kind of significant activity on your business system that you define, that you scope out for the CMMC assessment, then if there's any M&A activity, that likely will change. It'll change the business structure. It'll also very well almost always changes the infrastructure somehow. Also, if there's any other system changes, joining of networks, or you move to the cloud, or whatever it may be, those are significant changes. The M&A activity was specifically called out too, but any of those changes are going to require a new assessment. So if you've already been assessed, and say you have your level 3, or level 3, but level 2 certification, then and even really if you have your level 1 assessment complete, or level 2 self-assessment complete and uploaded, then a new assessment will have to be performed, whether it's self-assessment or certification assessment, because those are significant changes.
So they need to, if you're going through an M&A or anything like that, you need to make sure you have a budget for that.
Yeah. And I think they called out M&A activity specifically. I mean, really just because there's so much of it going on right now. I know in our world, in the IT world, there's just a ton of it going on. And we also see it with some of our manufacturing clients, that have gobbled up other people, or that got gobbled up. So absolutely, there's a lot of M&A going on.
Yeah, it's hot. It is hot.
And it takes different forms also, some M&A comes, some merger acquisition comes along and they leave everything as is. And then there's not just a lot of change. There is change, of course, to the business structure and who has that cage code and all that kind of fun stuff. But and then some come along, roll everything up, roll everything in together. There's all sorts, but those are changes that will require a new assessment.
Yeah, I think we've seen for most of our DoD, I would say small and mid-sized businesses that have been gobbled up. Most of them actually kept the infrastructure and the business entity for the most part just as is.
They did. There are quite a few of those that did. Absolutely.
I don't think we've seen a lot that did a full transition, because I think it's just a little more simple to and to keep things compliant as well. Just as it's a complete different entity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So ESPs were called out as well, you said.
ESPs were called out. So with the proposed rule, there was a lot of waves made in the comments and everything, because they with the proposed rule, they basically if you provided any sort of service to a organization seeking assessments, we'll just say OSA, okay. If you provided any kind of service to them that secured their data, secured their CUI, secured the configurations, or had configuration data, or of course that had that processed, stored, or transmitted FCI or CUI, then you were an ESP. An ESP was this giant umbrella of everybody. CSPs, cloud service providers like Microsoft and Google and tons of others, are also ESPs. So that was a giant umbrella term. And so for CMMC, if you're an ESP, if you store, transmit, or process CUI or FCI or CUI, or if you have security protection assets or security protection data for that client. So, and as such, if you were an ESP and fall under that, then you either had to be, if you're a CSP, of course, this didn't change, but you're going to have to be FedRAMP moderate authorized or equivalent. That could be a whole podcast episode in itself. But there's a difference there, and it matters. It matters in the cost of the program, of the assessment, and everything. But the other thing for the rest of the ESPs that are not a CSP, that meant you had to be level 2 certified before the OSA could even go seek assessment. And not only did we, as an ESP, as an IT provider, have to be level 2 certified before our OSA our client could go seek assessment or certification, but any service that we used also had to be level 2 certified, or depending if it was a CSP, it had to be, of course, FedRAMP moderate. But so that impacted a lot, and it really shrunk the services down to sorry for the noises, the sound effects there.
Don't worry, we'll amplify them on the editing. Yeah.
Right. But it really shrunk that down to just a few enterprise services, which was that's not good at all for SMBs.
Especially from a cost standpoint.
From a cost standpoint, everything. So it's not good for us because none of those enterprise type solutions that would be left are meant for small businesses. They're hard to manage for, if you have a whole bunch of small entities you're trying to manage, it makes it tougher. But what this proposed rule, what the final rule did, sorry about going on and on, but what this final rule did was it narrowed that back down and said that we don't have to be L2 certified, or we don't have to be the same level as our client. However, all of our systems in question that fall under the ESP status will have to be assessed along with the clients. So if you have a bunch of clients that are seeking assessment or certification, then it might be best to go ahead and get L2 certified. So that's just a lot easier for you, and you don't have to go through that fun process, 10, 20, 30, 100 times, it'd be best to be L2 certified, but we don't have to be. So, but to clarify, your systems will be assessed along with your clients, the systems in question.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have an IT company or anyone else that might be considered an ESP that isn't L2 certified, they could make you fail an assessment because their computer network and infrastructure is not in order. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they'll exactly because their systems that are in question that fall under the ESP status are going to be assessed along with that organization seeking assessment or certification.
Yeah. So my personal opinion on this is if I was going to spend $40,000 to $60,000 on a C3 PAO, or to have a assessor come out, and my IT provider told me, yeah, we're good, good old thumbs up. I might want to put some effort into making sure that thumbs up is not just a wink and a nod, because then they're gonna. That money
Absolutely.
that came out of pocket's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are the issues of failing an assessment? Is that the implications of that?
Well, the implications. So if you'll have a POAM for 180 days, and assuming now there are things that can't go on the POAM. So if you don't meet and can't fix the things that can't go on the POAM that you haven't been scored as met, then you've probably got a very limited time to be able to prove to the assessor that that control is actually met. So aside from those, if you have stuff that can go on the POAM, then you've got 180 days, and after that, you just lose your assessment. You have to go back through the whole thing again. If there was you can't be awarded a contract until you have that certification in place. So if you're depending on that certification to be able to get that next contract, then you're out of luck there.
So it can impact the revenue, obviously.
Obviously, yes, sir.
So I think this is again just Austin Justice's opinion.
This is watch out, y'all.
We're getting controversial here, but what I'm trying to say is I think this is a good change ultimately because it allows for nuance, but what it does effectively is shifts the burden to the entity seeking certification, or liability rather. So because otherwise, if your ESP is certified, then you're just good to go. If they're not certified and they're giving you the thumbs up and you're seeking certification, then that introduces a liability for you. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it does. And it really all goes back to something we've said, I think, in every podcast. All the hundreds of podcasts we've done, not really, just the few podcasts that we've done so far, it goes back to something we've said in every one is preparation.
Yeah.
Preparation. You've got to prepare it. You've got to document. And so part of that preparation is making sure all the pieces are ready to go. And part of those, if you have an IT provider, an ESP that helps you out, then part of that process is going to be making sure that they're ready as well. And if they're, it may require you bringing somebody in for kind of a readiness assessment to verify everything's good. It may require you just hiring an RPO, a registered practitioner organization, somebody who has some idea to come in and verify that everything's in place before then. So lots of preparation.
Okay, cool. I thought that was kind of a big change with some nuance there that I want to kind of explore.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So moving on, because I think we beat that one to death there. Hopefully that's not bad to say for Google. God forbid we get demonetized with all of our reviewers out there.
Wait, we're monetized?
No. So the 48 CFR proposed rule revision, what happened there?
The 48 CFR?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
That proposed rule, it's proposed right now. It went through the comment period. So whenever it's expected to go, if you follow the process if you do the average number of days and all that kind of fun stuff, really it would probably be the end of next year before we see the final 48 CFR rule. What I'm hearing though, what everybody kind of says is that, and CyberAB said this, I believe, in that meeting, is that they expect it early to mid 2025, which is a little bit quicker than normal, but it's pretty simple. It's just the 48 CFR rule is what puts the 32 CFR rule that just went final. It's what puts that in place on contracts. So CMMC is official. The 48 CFR rule takes that official CMMC program and puts it in place on contracts. So when it goes final, there'll be a period. There'll be 4 phases. Every phase starts a year after the beginning of the one previous. So phase 1 starts, it'll go for a year. Phase 2 starts, goes for a year. Phase 1 are self-assessments basically, and they did leave some wiggle room in all these. So they left some wiggle room to say that we may require self-assessments. But there may be some that we choose, some contracts we choose that we say these have to have certification assessments, right? So these certification assessments could come earlier. They also said that they may, on some of these, they may leave the certification assessment to an option year on the contract, because contracts are for 1 year, and then they have 4 option years after that, just in general. So that's how they may do that. But phase 2 is where the certification assessments start being required on contracts. Technically, you would think that wouldn't be till 2026. However, I have no doubt that, and the CyberAB said this, is that they don't know how the primes are going to require that or need to require that over their subs. So the prime contractors like Lockheed, Bell, Raytheon, they may need to get some of their subs, all their subs, who knows, but they may need to get some of those level 2 certified before phase 2 kicks in, because there may be some reason they require it. So that's really just kind of a rough timeline, but that's what the 48 CFR rule is and what they're kind of expecting from it, and it puts all this in place on contracts.
What would you say if you're, running a business out there, you're seeking assessment or soon to be, what is the takeaway for that for you? Like, what would you do now?
you can
in terms of the 48 CFR.
In terms of the 48
Yeah.
CFR rule. Oh, okay. As far as in terms of the 48 CFR rule, really that's when the rubber really meets the road. I mean, once it's required on a contract, you have to have that. We're talking about level 2 certifications because those are the tough ones, and there's there's going to be level 1 and level 2 assessments, and by the way, they're talking a lot about the False Claims Act. So if you have a self-assessment and you upload it, be very cautious that you have actually gone and done the assessment yourself and gone through for instance, for level 2 self-assessment, gone through the NIST 800-171 A, which is the assessment guide. So make sure you've gone through that. Make sure you've assessed yourself properly. It's not just a check. I meet it. Check. It is not that at all. So you've got to go through that. You've got to do it. They're very serious about the False Claims Act. So that said, the examples they have out there with I know I'm kind of getting off on a rabbit, but the examples they have out there of False Claims Act being enforced. There's some universities that that they didn't just mess up and say, well, we did this and this is how we did it, and the government said, well, that's not good enough. That they didn't. That's not what happened with those universities. What happened was they said they did it, and they didn't even try. So, and I'm sure they were part of it that they did, but there were some. In other words, there was a lot of. It was very blatant. So, I wouldn't be scared that you implemented something and the federal government comes back and said, no, it shouldn't have been 1.5, it should have been 1.2, or whatever. I wouldn't be too scared about that, but just going off and checking the boxes is blatant, and you should absolutely not do that. You should also understand. So if you haven't taken time to understand how all the controls and objectives work, then you should figure that out. And because if you've not even tried to do that and you go check boxes off, then the federal government probably have a problem with that too.
I can jump in real quick. Not going back to the ESPs thing. That's another liability for you, because if you sent, for example, the SPRS assessment that you fill out and go through and answer all those questions, say you just sent that to your IT provider, they ran through it and said, yes, no, whatever, sent it back, you hurriedly went through it, filled it out, and submitted it, and then you get assessed, and then they cross-reference that SPRS with your assessment, and it's not matching up, then you could go to jail for that.
Yes, you could get in trouble for that, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's just important, because I know we're in the weeds a lot talking about the compliance and IT and physical controls aspects and stuff of it. But we need to sometimes check ourselves and go, what the government is trying to do is keep North Korea, China, Russia from, attacking our infrastructure. And this could affect, from their perspective, and probably rightly so, people's lives and wars, and they're coming at it from that perspective.
This is absolutely to protect the warfighter. It is.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a big deal to them.
Yes,
so
it is.
It's not just about making sure your antivirus is installed and you have the latest POAM or SSP or whatever. So you should probably treat it as such, because they are going to.
Absolutely, yeah. So the False Claims Act is a big deal, and they talk about it a lot. And so you'd figure if they're talking about it a lot, it's for a reason.
Yeah. Be warned.
Yes, be warned.
If they're telling you.
Right, yeah. To go back to the 48 CFR rule, really what people need to know now is that it is coming. The 48 CFR rule will probably be out a little earlier than it otherwise normally would. They're trying to hold to their timeline. They're trying to get all this stuff done. And even though, the timeline, if you follow everything out, probably 2026, early 2026, when they'll actually be required on contracts, then that doesn't mean it won't be required earlier by a prime. and so and it takes, if depending on where you are in your journey, with all the clarifications that have been made, even if you thought you were compliant, there may be some question now, and you may have to go back and fix some things. So all this stuff can't happen overnight. So projects to move to the cloud, projects to upgrade servers, or whatever there may be needed. All those take time. So don't wait. You need to get on that train and start getting those things done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that would go back to preparation.
Yeah,
it's all preparation.
Yeah. That is, I think we should maybe rename the podcast to prepare. Okay, cool. So does that do it for the 48 CFR?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I think you already talked about it, but I had a note specifically to reference the rollout timeline. But do you think we kind of covered that sufficiently?
We did. We kind of went over it, or we did go over it, and I think that was pretty sufficient. There's 4 phases. Mm-hmm. Each one starts a year after the one previous began. Mm-hmm. That said, there are some caveats, some fairly important caveats. So yeah, who knows? The main one being, there's a lot of people a lot of companies that are subcontractors of primes. Mm-hmm. And that ball is up in the air. Who knows when you're going to be required by the prime to be L2 certified? So
yeah, okay. I'll tell you what, we'll do this, Stacy. We've got that 48 CFR PDF that we put together. That's free information for people. We can drop that below, a link to that, so that way if anyone's curious about that, and it's got the timeline kind of estimated in there, we'll just put that, and that's all free information. We'll put that in the description.
That's good. Yeah. The only other thing I just thought of that they kind of mentioned at the CyberAB Townhall, but is also in there is Flowdown. Mm-hmm. You are required, the primes are required to make sure all their subs are whatever level they need to be. Mm-hmm. Level 1 self-assessment, level 2 self-assessment, level 2 certified, which is level 2 C3PAO is what they call it, or a level 3 C3PAO. So the primes have to make sure their subs are at the proper levels, mm-hmm. have the proper assessment in place or the proper certification in place. But that also means that all the subs have to make sure their subs mm-hmm. Have the appropriate assessment or certification. So depending on if you are a sub and you find out you have to be level 2 certified, then you have to figure out your subs. Do you send any FCI or CUI to them? Then they're going to have to be at the same level as you. Technically, if you just send them, I'm sure there are some situations this might be, but if you just send them FCI, which would be non-public contract information, basically, if you send them FCI but not CUI, then it's possible if you're level 2 certified, they may only have to be level 1. But in general, all the situations I could think of, if you have a sub and you're sending them any of that CUI, anything that could be construed as CUI, if it's done in performance of that contract for the federal government, then it's probably going to be called CUI. So they'll all have to be. You have to make sure that they're got the right certification. Mm-hmm. So it all flows down. You say it all rolls downhill, I guess, but definitely that flow down rule is a big one.
So remember, preparation is key. If these changes feel overwhelming, feel free to reach out to us. Call, email, text, comment, please. Also, as always, we want audience involvement on the show. Obviously, we don't do this live, so there's no phone to dial in. But if you just drop in on the comments, if you email us, text us on our the numbers on our website, CMMCcomplianceguide.com. Get us your question. We'll answer it here for free, so you don't have to pay us or anybody else. So we're happy to do that and encourage it. So
absolutely.
Thank you guys for joining us today, and I think that's it.
All right. Have a good one.